Google Ads demand gen campaigns are the closest thing right now to what Facebook ads was in 2018. Cheap reach, that old meta-style targeting with interests and lookalikes and barely anyone in the auction because most brands either don't know it exists or tried it once and quit. Your winning meta ads run on it almost unchanged. In front of people, meta isn't reaching, a blue ocean, and anyone who is buying Facebook ads traffic in 2018 knows what happens next. The channel keeps working, but the cheap seats at the table are gone forever. But a warning before you build this campaign. The version most accounts run doesn't work, and it's almost never the channel. It's the default settings. Every setting Google nudges you towards points this campaign at people who already know your brand, and its entire job is finding people who don't. So it burns budget, rebuying your audience. The new customers never come and it gets switched off as the channel that didn't work, which is exactly why the ocean is still blue. So here is the full blueprint on how exactly you can be successful with demand gen. And I'll flag the exact 3 moments that Google will try to steer you wrong. This brand, $407,000 from Google Ads in 1 month alone. This one, $0 to $447,000 in just 6 weeks. And this brand, $0 to $491,000 in the same 6 weeks. Really quick background on why you should listen to me. Before I ran Vulcan, our premier Google Ads agency, I was a medical doctor. But since starting this agency, we've generated over $150 million in revenue for e-commerce brands, including those ones just on screen. I want to show you these accounts because they all have one thing in common. None of them relied solely on Google Shopping or Google Search to scale. Each and every one of these brands had demand gen campaigns running in the background, creating the demand that search and shopping later cashed in on. Search, shopping got the credit, demand gen did the work. So why does everyone else's version fall over? Because of a pull built into the platform itself. And to see it, you really need to understand the core fundamentals of demand gen. So demand gen is a Google Ads campaign type that runs across YouTube, Shorts, in-feed, in-stream, plus the Discover feed and Gmail, and now the display network too. And the whole point of it is this. It reaches people who are not searching for you yet. It's not keyword based. You target on interests, lookalikes, and behaviors. People already into the type of product that you sell, who just don't happen to be typing it into Google at this very moment. In other words, it finds customers the same way Meta does, not the same way Google Search does. And that's the mental switch. Search waits for demand. Demand gen creates it. But this is where people confuse it with Performance Max. Performance Max for e-com leans really heavily on search and shopping, but demand gen operates above all that in a non-search environment with no keywords involved. It's genuinely the most underrated channel in all of e-commerce in 2026. And it's by far and away the cleanest second home for the winning ad creative you already have on Meta. But there's a reason most accounts get it wrong. And it's not a mistake that anyone decides to make. Because every default in this campaign has a pull. Every setting Google suggests, every box that it pre-ticks, every recommended banner, they all optimize for quick and easy conversions. And it's these quickest, easiest conversions are the ones that come from the people who already know you. So left to its own devices, demand gen campaigns slide backwards, away from the strangers it exists to find and towards the warm traffic that was going to buy anyway. Nobody sets it up that way on purpose. It just drifts. And I call this the warm drift. And it's why most campaigns are switched off within a few months with a "we tried it and it didn't work." The drifted campaign spends its budgets reaching people who already knew the brand. So the growth that you built it for never arrives. And because demand gen rarely gets last click credit even when it is working, the dashboard can't defend it either. No new customers you can feel and no numbers you can point to either. Of course it gets switched off. So through this build, at 3 specific moments, Google is going to nudge you toward the drift. But I'll flag each one as we hit it so you can do the opposite. But first, you need to see the ground this campaign fights on, because demand gen isn't one placement, it's 5 different ones. And what wins on each is not the same ad. YouTube Shorts first, because if you're coming over from Meta, for you this is home turf. Short form, vertical, UGC style wins here for a very specific reason. YouTube is already full of real product reviews. So genuine looking UGC reviews blend right in to the feed instead of screaming ad. But your first 2 to 3 seconds decide everything. Visual hook and spoken hook, or else people just swipe. Then you're in feed. Your ad sits in YouTube's home feed, search results, and suggested next videos, right next to real organic videos fighting for the exact same click, which means the thumbnail is the entire battle. Spend real time on that thumbnail. It's doing the same job that your first 2 to 3 seconds is on YouTube Shorts. In stream are the skippable and non-skippable ads that show before or during videos. Then Discover and Gmail. These behave differently again. Native style statics do the best work here. And the winners tend to be informational. They call out a problem that someone's feeling rather than shouting an offer at them. And hold that thought, because in a minute, that becomes a rule. Device-wise, I'd focus on mobile and desktop today, though I'm seeing connected TV improve really fast, so keep an eye there. I really want to dig into the creative formats that you should be running. Just like Meta, creative is the single most important lever in demand gen, full stop. But you don't have to start from scratch. Take your 3 or 4 winning creatives from Meta, built around a single angle that already works, and bring them over. A tight handful around a proven angle, not 50 ads dumped into one ad campaign. Which brings me to the first of the 3 moments I warned you about. And it's the one most people fight me on, because it's not a setting you can toggle. It's hiding inside what the ad says. See, the instinct is to lead with the offer. 20% off, buy now, ends Sunday. And on warm traffic, that works. But watch what it does to a cold campaign. When you hammer an offer, you train the algorithm to go out and find people that already want your very product, because those are the ones that convert on a discount. Offer-led ad creative drags the whole campaign back to warm traffic. That's the drift, baked into your messaging before you've touched a single setting. So on cold, you don't sell the offer, you sell the problem. Call out the specific thing your buyer is feeling, the ache, the annoyance, the thing they haven't fixed yet, before you mention a product at all. Product-aware people are warm people. You want the algorithm hunting for the first group. The offer can come later once you've earned it. And 2 practical details around video before we move on. The first is that you should put your call to action both as text on screen and say it out loud, because a big chunk of people watch with the sound off. And if they can't hear you, they still need to be told where to click. And the second thing then is for inspiration. If you want to see what's actually working in your industry, there's 2 places I recommend you going. One is free and the other is paid. The Google Ads Transparency Center is a completely free tool, just like Meta Ads Library, and you can see exactly what your competitors are running on YouTube. And a paid alternative, which gives you more information, is VidTow. You can see how long an ad's been live and roughly how much spend is behind it. Higher spending ads are winning ads by definition. So the ads lead with a problem and someone cold just clicked it. Where they land decides whether that click was money well spent. And it's the second place the drift is waiting. Because a lot of brands are sending their demand gen traffic straight to product pages. It makes sense on paper. You paid for the click, so show them the thing. But these are top of funnel placements if you're doing it correctly, like I said. The person clicking is cold. Dropping a stranger onto a PDP is like asking them to marry you on a first date. I noticed that it's that same warm drift logic, just in a new coat. The PDP converts warm visitors beautifully, which is exactly why it feels right, but is so wrong for this campaign type. So mirror the pages and the funnels you've been using to convert cold traffic on Meta. An advertorial, a listicle, an educational pre-lander. something that does the selling a cold visitor needs before they ever see a buy button. Match the person to where they actually are in the journey. There's no point matching a top of funnel ad to a bottom of funnel page. Now, the one exception, because there always is an exception. If your video ad does a fantastic job at educating, really walks the buyer through from problem to fix, then you've earned slightly more bandwidth to send straight to a PDP. And if you have a video that performs well going straight to PDP on Meta, that's fair grounds to test the same here. But as a rule of thumb, demand gen campaigns that don't run to a product page outperform for us. Pre-lander first, PDP only in exceptional circumstances. Right, you know what your ads say and you know where they land. Next question, who's allowed to see them? And this is the section that most tutorials will wave through. And for cold traffic, it's where the build is actually won. 3 layers. First, the exclusions. This is non-negotiable. Exclude your past purchasers and your email list. If you skip this, you've built the drift in by hand. The algorithm will happily spend its budget re-finding people who have already bought from you. Quarantine them, full stop. Second, the seed audiences. You can layer in your best performing in-market segments from your search or your shopping campaigns. They're fine, but here's what I do instead time and time again because it works. I build custom segments from the high intent non-brand search terms that are already converting in my search and shopping campaigns. So go pull your search term report. Find those terms cold buyers actually purchased on. Now, not clicked, purchased. Those exact phrases become your custom segment. You're essentially telling Google, find more people who search and convert on things like these. Think about what that means. Everyone else seeds their targeting with guesses. Interests, they assume categories that sound right, but you're seeding yours with proof. People who behave like your existing buyers did the day before they became your buyers. Think about that. The third layer, I like to turn optimized targeting on. This one surprises people because I spent all of this video already telling you to turn off Google's default settings. But this is the exception and the logic is important. Your custom segments is a starting point, not a cage. Optimized targeting lets Google expand beyond the seed once it learns what is converting well. So I seed it with proof and then let it explore. And that's our audiences set. And all that's left now is just wiring it all up. Budget, bidding, and one last checkbox. And Google has saved its best nudge for the end. So with budget, I recommend a $100 per day minimum. But honestly, I'd push closer to $300 per day if you can. The reason for this is volatility. The lower your budget, the noisier early performance will be. And noise is what makes people panic and pull the plug after week 1 or 2. With bidding, start on maximized conversions, not target CPA. At least not yet. And I know for some people that can feel more reckless, but a target CPA this early just handcuffs the algorithm. It lowers its ability to go out and explore for new customers, which is the entire reason that we're running this campaign. Once conversions are coming in steady, we're talking 50 to 100 per month. Then you can layer a target CPA on top and start tightening, but not at the start. And then in the same setup flow, Google offers you one more thing. And it'll even show you the numbers to prove it works. This is the last of the 3 warm drift moments, and it's the sneakiest one of the lot, because this time the drift arrives as an official recommendation. It's the product feed. Google will tell you attaching your product feed will lift conversions, and it's not lying. The problem is that uplift is driven by people who are already close to buying. Warm intent that a product shot tips over the edge. But when your audience is cold, the same feed does the opposite job. You're shoving a product at someone who's never heard of you before you've earned a single second of their attention. I don't want to force the idea of a product down a stranger's neck. And think about what it does to everything you've just built. You wrote a problem-led ad, you pointed it at an educational pre-lander, and the feed staples a price tag on the front of it. One checkbox and the whole cold journey you designed collapses right back into a product pitch. So for cold audiences, especially driving to that longer educational page, I run these without a product feed. A clean static or video ad whose only job is to get the click. And that's all 3 warm drift moments handled: messaging, landing page, and feed. And you hit publish. And the hardest part here is doing nothing. It's waiting. Don't touch anything for the first 7 to 14 days. Because this is top of funnel, there's a genuine lag before any results start to show. Someone sees your ad today and then buys 9 days later. And if you start yanking levers in day 7, you never get a true read of how your ads are performing. You've already paid for the data with the budget you set. Don't go away and corrupt it. Give it a full 30 days. Then once performance is holding, raise the budget in a series of steps, up to twice, sometimes maybe 3 times a week, as long as it keeps holding. That's the operating rhythm. Launch, hands off, read, then look to grow it. And at day 30, you're going to open your dashboard, even if that campaign is working beautifully. And the screen in front of you probably is going to give you a number that you're not quite happy with. The campaign isn't failing though, don't worry. It's just you're reading the wrong report. Because demand gen will die in one of 2 ways. Either it's built for warm traffic or it's measured wrong. Everything up to now fixed the first thing. But the second is sneakier because a properly built campaign, quietly feeding everything else and a dashboard saying it's losing money. Most demand gen campaign failures aren't performance failures, they're measurement failures. When people give up on this channel 9 times out of 10, it isn't because it didn't work. It's because they couldn't see that it worked. Watch how this happens. Someone sees your demand gen ad. This is the first time they've ever encountered your brand. They click, they browse, they bounce. No sale, looks like a waste. A few days later, they get remarketed to on Meta. Then a week after that, they type in your brand name to Google. They click your shopping ad and buy. Who then gets the credit on a last click report? Well, shopping. Demand gen created that customer and got nothing on the scoreboard. So you turn demand gen off, and a month later, your shopping performance mysteriously drops off, and you can't figure out why. But where should you actually look? Go to goals, then measurement, then attribution, and pull assisted conversions. Demand gen consistently shows a high assist ratio. It's in the customer journey constantly. It just rarely gets the last click. Secondly, separate click from view through conversions. Sometimes your view through conversions can inflate and flatter the numbers. And thirdly, watch your branded search lift over time. Google are rolling out in-platform features to assist with monitoring this, but there's 2 easy ways that you can already check this yourself. Number 1, you can look at your own branded search campaigns to see if the volume of impressions has increased alongside your demand gen campaigns. And number 2, you can just go into Search Console for your website and once again check your search traffic. If demand gen's working well, your branded search will climb. And then of course you can use a third-party tool like Northbeam or Triple Whale. I'm not sponsored by either of them. Or you can also ask customers, use a post-purchase survey. Where did you find us? If they say YouTube, well then you know that's demand gen. Or maybe you have a promo code within your demand gen funnel. Read this channel on conversions, assists, post-purchase surveys, brand lift, and now it will stop looking like the campaign that's losing you budget and start looking like the campaign it is, the one that's lifting up everything around it. Demand gen isn't underperforming in most accounts. It's drifted warm and it's measured wrong. Catch the 3 drift moments: problem before offer, pre-lander before product page, and feed off for cold. Then hands off for 30 days and judge it on the whole picture that you're seeing within your brand. Do that and it stops being the channel that didn't work and becomes the one quietly feeding everything else. And because most brands will keep running it on the defaults, the ocean will stay blue for those who don't. If you want me to look at your account, see where the opportunity is for you to scale your e-commerce store with demand gen campaigns, then there is a link in the description to book a free one-to-one strategy call with me today. And remember, demand gen is one engine, not the whole machine. If you want to see the full cold traffic system, how it all fits together, then watch this next video right here.